All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to webinar number 2 in our Softball Ontario Spring Webinar Series. My name is Justin Van Horn. I'm the Education Officer for Softball Ontario. And this evening, our presentation team are going to be Jen Keller-Nelson and Aaron Godet. I'm going to give them a little bit of an intro here in a moment. But I want you to know that for our Spring Webinar Series, that we have a couple of more coming up real soon. So I want you to save the date if you can for next Sunday, April the 19th. It's going to be a hot stove discussion and just a real quick description of what we're talking about. We're going to have breakout rooms for your various levels of umpires. And in the room are going to be a level 5 umpire and a Softball Ontario umpire committee member. And it's basically going to be a Q&A hot stove style thing. You might come with questions about rules, questions about policy and procedure with Softball Ontario, something to do with on-field things, off-field things. Hey, you're going to come with your questions, and we're going to do our very best to provide answers for you as we head into our 2026 season. April 26th is going to be the last of our webinars in our spring series, and it's going to be called The Road to Canadian Championships. And I'll give you a little bit more of a description on that next week. So I want to introduce our two presenters for the evening. And so just give me a quick moment as I bring up a couple of bios here. I want to get this right. So first I want to introduce to you Jen Keller-Nelson. Jen is entering her 34th year of umpiring. Jen's from Grafton, Ontario, which is in Zone 9. Jen is an elementary teacher by day and a coach and official by night. Very exciting. Jen got her level 5 designation in 2017 and has had the honor of supervising at 2 Canadian championships. Joining Jen this evening is Aaron Godet. Aaron is entering his 18th year of umpiring, and he resides in Cobourg, which is in Zone 9 as well. Aaron recently received his level 4 certification last summer, back in 2025. Very exciting. Aaron is a chartered professional accountant. He also does coaching and officiating in his off hours. So everybody, please let's give Aaron and Jen a very warm welcome.
All right.
All right, Jen, you're ready to share whenever you like.
There, are we good, Justin?
Golden.
Perfect. Okay, welcome everybody. As Justin said, our presentation is pre and post game conversations. And I think if we all reflect on ourselves, we probably could say that this is one area where all of us could potentially spend a bit more time. As when we work with people that we are common to, we don't probably spend as much time doing pre and post game as we should. And this tends to fall more once we get towards provincial and national or Canadian championships where we're meeting new people. So to get us started, I'm just going to give us a definition of what is effective communication. Basically, the gist of effective communication is it's a clear exchange of information, ideas, and emotions where the message is received and understood. And as we can see, or as we know, it should be clear and concise, open and honest, and it should be, a mix of verbal and nonverbal as well. And we need to recognize that this is something that everyone always needs to work on to improve on. The emphasis, though, needs to be on open communication so that everybody involved in the pregame and or postgame is included and heard and a valued member of the team. We need to remember to make sure that we're willing to listen to our partners or partner, depending on the situation. But also, we need to make sure that we're going to have our voice heard so that we feel as an effective member within the team. So that's just a little premise to get us started with. And Aaron is going to take us into the next slide for us.
So, big piece is why do we pregame? It creates success for the game, success for everyone, and helps us with some preventative umpiring. So, preparation does breed success, and making sure that you're on the same page as your partner will breed success when you're moving around the diamond. Um, Going over stuff beforehand will help make sure that each of you are aware of your responsibilities as an umpire, who's responsible for what rotations, especially on some of the more difficult ones as we move towards the 3 and 4 umpire system. Um, and it's really important that we know where our partners are, so that we can adapt and know where we should be as well. Jen has some pregame focus.
So a few things, and again, the more often we work with people in our own local area, we kind of become attuned to how all of this works. But there are things that we should sometimes step back and reflect on. One being coordinating arrival time so that people are not entering the ball diamond, arriving at the ball diamond in a hurry at the last minute. Ideally, everybody should be there at least 20 to 30 minutes ahead of time. And at that point in time, you can make sure that, you can have time to cover a variety of topics. Provincial games, when you're working with potentially new partners, it becomes even more important to meet early because you don't necessarily understand the nuances of everybody. And you want to have a few minutes to get to know the person as best you can before you get started. Ideally, you can coordinate your uniform ahead of time. It just ends up ensuring that, you only bring what you need to the ballpark as opposed to bringing your entire wardrobe. Because I'm sure a lot of us can reflect on, how much clothing we do carry as umpires. So again, try to be more efficient with our time. Relevant information. This one can be a little bit dicey depending on what kind of topics we decide to discuss during our pregame. Key things to look at though is what level of ball will we be umpiring that night, because that will dictate, where our conversation is going to go. Could possibly dictate whether it's 2, 3, or 4 umpire system. Another interesting piece of information that we should discuss here is, do we have any previous experience with these teams, coaches, players, and such? Recognizing, though, that every game we do is a new game. So even if we've had a negative experience prior, we should make sure that we clean the slate and we start fresh with that coaching staff or those players and the team in general. We want to make sure that we're always giving them, our best effort as well. We want to make sure we don't have any, history to impact the potentially good game that we may have that night. Depending on which member association we're umpiring, we may have to, review the rules that are specific to each age category. We know that we umpire a variety of leagues, levels, and within our local areas, they have different rules that pertain to their league play versus provincial tournaments versus national tournaments. So those are things that we need to be reviewing before we get to the diamond, so that when we get there, we're fully prepared and we don't look like we're unsure of what's going on. So again, relevant information will be dictated by where we're at and who is involved. And every time we have a game, that's going to be different. We know that, and we have to go in with an open mind each time. So our pregame focus sets us up for the next piece of what we're required or what we should be doing on a regular basis.
So Jen covered a lot of these in her little blurb, but it's pretty important. These are the types of things we should be talking about before the game, especially sometimes the previous experience you have with teams. There could be some relevant information that you'll know or your partner will know that can help make the game run smoothly. What we're doing for helmets and bat checks, especially in provincial tournaments, we should be on the same page, and that on helmets and bat checks and the the level at which we're doing them, making sure what stamps we're looking for, making sure what stickers we're looking for, cracks, bends, whatever you can find in them. The 2 umpire system rotations are important, as is at any time they need to be done. But then as you get further up in the levels and skill, you're going to start seeing the 3 and 4 umpire rotation much more often. And those are really important because if we aren't on the same page for things such as fly ball coverages, they can create some mass confusion and issues at the tournament. If you're at a new field, the potential ground rules that you need to go over or any rule issues that could come up because at the field are important. If you've done the walkthrough, if one of you did it, one you didn't, or if one was later. So any ground rules that come up from that or rule interpretations from that. And then also very important is our umpire to umpire communication and what signals we're using, or if we're using verbal or non-verbal communication, such as to show where we're going or if we're in or out on a fly ball.
Part 2 of our pregame, which we don't necessarily, when we hear the term pregame, we don't always include the plate conference in this setup, but every game we do should have some form of a plate conference. Individuals at the plate conference should include all the umpires, the bench staff representation, whether that's a coach or a manager, and then player representation. We know as they get older that potentially there will not be player representation, and that's fine as well, but we should always ensure we have the approach that everybody is welcome if they'd like to bring the players. At the pregame plate conference, as we should all be aware, if there's lineup cards, we should be reviewing those with the coaches to ensure that everybody has everything correct so that we can, again, utilize preventative umpiring and not have an issue come back later that we could have easily dealt with at the plate conference. Examples would include maybe a missing substitution, an improper uniform number, a name maybe not spelt correctly or missing a piece of the name, so that we avoid any controversy later on. As we've mentioned during this pregame plate conference, we're going to review the ground rules, and we're going to do that so that everybody is ensured they understand where the playing field is. If we're not lucky enough to have fencing all the way, we have to review any holes in the fencing and such like that. As well, this is another good time to review any league-specific rules, maybe ones that we missed during our pregame with just the umpires, or potentially ones that have been agreed upon between the coaches ahead of time, just to ensure that they are appropriate and that they are going to allow for the game to be played to the fairest level possible. During this discussion, we want to make sure we're focusing on positive interactions. We would make sure we introduce ourselves plus our partners. Some umpires choose to let the crew introduce themselves individually, or one can lead. That would be up to the crew to decide prior to the game starting. And at the end of the plate conference, take the time to make sure we wish everybody a good game and good luck. We want to ensure that they're feeling that we are there to officiate the game to the best of our ability in a positive manner so that everybody has success that night to their best ability.
So now we've had the game, we've done everything we need, and we're on to the post game. A lot of us talk a lot about umpiring and about what we're doing after the game, but it's important to do this because reviewing the game is important in case something weird happens or there's a question you have on a ruling possibly that you didn't have a chance to talk about during the game. It's good right after the game to break down those plays and possible incidents to make sure that everybody kind of has the same idea on what happened and that we're not construing it to other people or that we're saying the same things. After the game, it's important to not only talk about things that went wrong, but also finding the positives, because we're all doing our best and we're all trying out there, and finding the positives is important to keep us motivated in some cases and continue to come back. talked about the plan for future games, like if you made a mistake or something like that when you're trying to learn new rotation or movement, will help you to advance with umpiring and make sure you are doing the proper thing next time instead of doing something in a game and making it feel right, and then you feel like you are doing it right all the time, and you get to a provincial championship or a national championship, and then you're told, oh no, this is the completely wrong thing to do, right? So we like just an example, like last year we were doing a game and Jen's laughing because she already knows where I'm going with the story. But we were doing a game and we didn't know what to do because we had a ball hit in fair territory that just smoked a bird on the way down, and we weren't sure what we were supposed to do. We made our best decision that we could at the time, and then after the game, we talked about it more than I think anybody will ever know. We've talked about that for getting hit in the head.
Yes, that dead bird has been discussed many a time. The other aspect to the post game would be evaluators coming in to, evaluate both umpires, all three umpires or four. On the screen is the Softball Ontario evaluation form that hopefully everybody on the call is familiar with. Again, this is available online, and if you're not really sure, reach out to your Zook so you can have one sent to you, just so you have it as reference. And it clearly breaks down everything that evaluators in Softball Ontario are looking for their umpires to be successful. As evaluators, we all play a key role in post-game discussions and debriefs. And the approach to which you take is very personal approach, but we want to make sure that we're covering a few areas so that umpires feel that they're receiving an evaluation that is positive, honest, and beneficial to them moving forward. The topics that you're going to cover during your evaluation are going to be relevant to the umpire, to the levels, and to the game to which you have just watched. While we have a standard evaluation form, we know that depending on the level, we adjust our focus based on what we need to. So if I'm looking at a first-year umpire, where is my focus going to be that game? It could be more looking at very basic aspects versus if I'm evaluating a level 4 or even a level 5 umpire, where we're going to be much more precise with what we're expecting. As an evaluator, when you're sitting there during the game, you want to make sure that you're preparing your message so that it can be clearly delivered to the umpires involved. That helps to ensure that everybody receives the information, the critiques potentially, or the positives so that they can build off of that and move forward. We all know that there is the potential for negative topics to have to be discussed or, spoken about because maybe something what we would consider basic to that individual at that level was not done properly, or it all depends on what you're looking for, but it could be even just their approach, maybe hustle, maybe dress that night. And we want to make sure that we're going to deliver those messages in as a positive manner as possible. No one likes to be told the negative stuff. So as evaluators, we need to make every effort to ensure that we put a positive spin on it. Another aspect that we really need to focus on, whether we're evaluators or just evaluating ourselves as an umpire, is being honest with ourselves. We know that when we go on the diamond that, the players in that game that night, this is their big game. They want to be there, and we need to make sure we're giving our best effort all the time. So when we're being honest as evaluators, we want to be aware of how we deliver the message so that we don't turn people off of umpiring. On the flip side, that we, don't also give them false information. We want them to attain the highest level possible, and that needs to be with an honest delivery. Know our audience. So how we speak to our first-year umpires or younger umpires versus how we speak to seasoned officials, there is a difference to that. And they are not drastic differences, but they are enough that we need to be aware of how we're addressing the situation because we want to get to, again, like we've said, ensure that we have given them an honest evaluation that's going to lay the foundation for those umpires to move forward and achieve their goals that they have established. We want to make sure that we're leaving lots of room for open dialogue. This is a shift that we have seen happening, at least through my time as an umpire, where before it was always top down. Now the approach seems to be, how are we feeling? What do we think went well? What do we think we need to improve on? Where should our focus be? By having the open dialogue, it's going to allow everybody within the conversation to find areas to move forward with. Because I'm pretty sure even as evaluators, we can admit or, acknowledge that we also have room for improvement every time we do an evaluation. Lastly, for this topic, we need to make sure we remember to submit our evaluations for to the umpire, to the zone umpire in chief, and to the office. This will help umpires move forward in achieving their goals. I know at the committee level, we do sometimes know that evaluations have not been received, and because of that, some umpires are deemed ineligible to potentially either move up levels or attend Canadian championships. And as evaluators, we need to make sure that we are not limiting our umpires because we failed to do some paperwork. So post-game evaluator approach will always be individual and different depending on the situation. And that is something we need to keep in mind. Pre-game, post-game conversations are very important at all levels and within everybody involved. Are there any questions? Justin, I think you can take back over now.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Thank you, Aaron, so much for your presentation so far. I know we're going to have some questions or some things coming into the chat here as some people begin reflecting on some of the things you were just talking about. Back to the bird, Aaron and Jen, the bird. Of course, people in the chat wanted to make a comment about the ruling, and of course, throwing a little, funny little thing here or there. Yeah, just for the point of clarity, there's nothing in a rule book that's going to support us doing something strange with a live ball hitting a live bird. It continues to be a live ball, even if the bird doesn't continue to be live. So that was a good comment there by Matt Hall on the ruling. So a question here from Lynn, Terry Berry. Where are these webinars kept so that we can review them at a later date? So sure, Lynn will grab that one right now. So Lynn, these are getting posted to the Softball Ontario Umpires YouTube channel. If Brian Reese is on the call, he can jump in at any point, but I don't think we have Brian Reese with us tonight. Brian is the person who is tasked with that YouTube channel. I know it's up and going, but I don't have the exact name for it. But that's where these webinars are getting posted. They're getting posted to YouTube. Okay, Lynn? Hopefully that helps. Oh, nice, Robin. Abcluction. It's the Dad Joke Award, everybody. Abcluction. Well done, Rob. Ha, ha, ha. Very, very good. Jen, Aaron, if I could jump in with a question. So Jen, you had a slide there, your last slide about the evaluator as it pertains to post-game debrief and post-game discussion. Can you just touch on a couple of points? And I'm not trying to, catch you off guard here, but if you're evaluating somebody in terms of pre-game, is there anything you would say about pre-game if you are going to be formally evaluating somebody for that game?
I think depending on the situation, if it's more of a seasoned crew, I may not necessarily prepare them that I'm coming just to see, the difference between knowing you're being evaluated and not knowing you're being evaluated. If it's a younger crew or newer umpire, I definitely would, do the pregame with them, not necessarily lead it for them, but help them develop a technique of doing pre-games. Listen in, prompt them when necessary, but I would let them try to develop their leadership with it, but again, guide them, prompt them as necessary if they require prompting. Aaron, do you have anything to add there? Or?
No, not really.
Very good. Daryl Way, I always love to grab a comment from Daryl Way. Daryl, so Daryl's experience out counts and outnumbers us all with respect to evaluating in Canadian championships. Daryl's comment is, with respect to the pregame, it's obvious often if a crew has in fact done a good pregame or not. And I know Daryl's probably reflecting, specifically on Canadian championships, but, just rewinding back to provincial championships or even local league games, it can become very evident that a pregame has taken place or hasn't. Mark Trepanier is asking about the March 4th instructor evaluator presentation. So Mark, that presentation has not been shared out yet. It won't end up on the YouTube channel just because it's not really like main content for all of Softball Ontario's umpires. That will be shared out with a specific link. Sorry, Mark, we haven't got to that yet. So that will be emailed directly out to the folks who participated that evening. Looking for, Brian Sharples jumped in with, was it Dave Winfield? So yeah, Dave, if I remember correctly, there was some, I believe Dave got arrested, right? It was at a Blue Jays game, Ontario law. There was basically a wild
that is so true, Justin. That is so true.
Yeah, yes. That was pretty crazy. I think some people are probably thinking about the Randy Johnson pitched ball situation that hit the bird as well. But that's a pretty good one there, Brian, for sure. Back to the pre and post game conversation. If I could jump in for a quick moment as just a person who's also experienced a lot of pre-game, post-game stuff. Here in Canada and Ontario specifically, I never thought for a moment that carrying out a notepad and small pen and putting it in my back pocket was ever like approved or like okay. In fact, my first thought when I first heard about this was, well, that seems kind of bush league. Like players are going to look at you and think that you're like unprepared or you're doing something like distracted between innings. By the way, I'm talking about between innings. When I went to my WBSC seminar and then had my first WBSC experience, it wasn't just promoted or encouraged. It was a mandate that as a working umpire, you would have a notepad and a pen in your back pocket so that if something happened during the game, of course, between innings, you would just make a quick little note on your notepad. That's so that in your post-game debrief, you had things that you didn't forget about. Because that's the worst part is you go to a post-game debrief, you want to have a good, meaningful conversation. You're like, what happened in that game? And you might forget a key play or two. That notepad is totally a good idea to keep that in terms of post-game notes. And you might not make too many notes during the game. It might only be 1 or 2 or 3 notes, but that can really lead to a good, meaningful post-game debrief. And Matt, I'm just checking there. If there's a protest, that's also a way to sometimes get documentation down, especially if we're working a game where we don't have lineup cards. So that's a good point too, Matt Hall. Stuart, with injury ejection, really good comments as to where that notepad can come in handy. So I'll just throw in my 2 cents in there on that one. Just checking the chat here. It looks like we've cleared the chat. So at this moment, I'm going to do one last call for any items in the chat, and we'll just pause for a quick moment there. So not seeing any new questions coming up in the chat, I do want to certainly thank Jen and Aaron for their excellent presentation tonight. They gave us a lot to think about and lots to consider as we head into the upcoming 2026 season. I want to thank everybody who participated and signed on for tonight's webinar. Our next webinar is next Sunday, 7 p.m., where we'll have a hot stove style of webinar. And I hope everybody comes back at that time, and encourage your umpire friends to join us as well for next Sunday. Until then, everybody have a great week. Thank you so much. Have a good night.